watching our YouTube channels. If you guys online have questions, you can type those in and I'll try to respond to them. And remember, I'll try to repeat your comments. If I don't think this microphone here picks up your statement, I'm going to repeat it. You're not picking me up? How about now? Okay. All right. So y'all can't read lips, is that it? Yeah, probably. Yeah. But John, your wife can always read lips, right? All righty. So tonight, the only announcement I know about is men's breakfast tomorrow morning at 6:30. Gentlemen, let's start our day out with some fellowship and spend some time together, start our day out. And so before we get into our class, let's have a word of prayer. Our Heavenly Father, we come to you thankful for the blessings of this evening. And Father, we are so thankful for this opportunity to come together as fellow Christians and discuss and share your word, share our thoughts with your word. And we know that in your word we find the things that we need to teach us to do things right, to be the right example, to show the world that Christ is in us and that we are in Christ. We ask, Father, that you bless us in our study and help us to all have the heart of the good soil to take the word in. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay, we're going to study tonight. We'll have our discussion will be on righteousness and wickedness, and then a short section on just verses that talk about the Lord. And again, reminder, it's been 3 weeks since we had class. A reminder, if I think I got everybody on the email, but I see a couple people that I didn't send an email out to, and I'll try to get you on the list. Well, Dre told me not to send you anything. No, I'll get you. I'm sorry, John. And I see the Craigs I didn't send out to y'all. So I'll try to clean my list up. It comes from the email will come from the church, so hopefully it won't be go to your spam folder. But remember, in that email, there's a link to the blog, which gives a complete set of notes, everything that I'm looking at, and also the list of the entire list of the verses that I believe apply to the particular topic. I'm just picking out 2 or 3 along on each area. And again, that list that's printed at the end of each lesson in the blog that's my division. There's nothing sacred about it. You can look in that and say, well, that really doesn't talk about the Lord or wickedness in there. You think it might, and that's fine. It's just kind of a place to start and a place to discuss. I want to put this one quote on here. As with the Christian religion, the worst advertisement for socialism is its adherents. That's by George Orwell, and we wouldn't confuse him with being a Christian man by any means. But sometimes people who say they're a Christian are absolutely the worst example and set the worst example and actually run people off from religion as a whole by the way they act. And we see that with different things. And I'm reminded of when Jesus came and he spent his 3-year ministry, his harsh criticism were for the so-called religious leaders because they were hypocrites. And they said, but they didn't do, and they were the worst. And he called them out many times, and they were probably had a huge part in his execution. And so it behooves us to just remember we're the light. People see the light in us. And if they don't see it in us, where are they going to see it? And so this righteousness and wickedness, I know that sometimes we look at the world as a whole and we think people are crazy. And some of them are. You see the decisions that some people make. But people can see the kind of person that we are. We really can't fool people. They see us if we act righteously. They see us if we don't live it. They see that. They're not stupid. They see us. Now we may disagree and see that people do dumb things, and they do. We've all made dumb mistakes, yes. But people see us, and as I was going through this, I was thinking, what do people see in us, in our congregation? What do they see in me as an individual? Do they see someone that they believe is trying to live a righteous life? Do they see that? I firmly believe that people they see and they understand. So anyway, last week 3 weeks ago we talked about wisdom. I gave you another quote. I love these quotes. Wisdom has been chasing you, but you're always faster. And that's kind of my summation of our study of wisdom, because Solomon pointed out several times wisdom's calling in the streets, wisdom's seeking people. And so in a manner of speaking, in this southern phrase, people just seem to outrun wisdom and get away from it. So as we contrast, and I look at this, and one of the things I want us to be thinking about in the end, I want to end with our discussion on this, is we see wisdom and folly. We see people that make good decisions, and we see people that make foolish decisions. The question I have that I want you to be thinking about as we go through this, is there a progression? If someone is foolish, makes foolish decisions, we've all made foolish decisions. We've looked back and thought, I shouldn't have done that. The people who continue to stay there, is that a progression? Do they eventually get to the point where they're just wicked? Because I do not believe that someone, when they reach the age of accountability, they're just wicked. They don't come out that way when they start learning right and wrong. They're not wicked. They don't start out that way. So how do people get from not being wicked, maybe just being foolish or naive or whatever it is, and how do they get to the point of being wicked? I may be totally off base, but I want you to, I want to think about that. Is someone who just continues to act foolishly and continue to refuse wisdom and not seek to do better, do they get to the point where they're wicked? They're just wicked to the point that, like God told Jeremiah in Jeremiah 7, don't pray for these people. Don't talk to me about these people. I do not want to hear it. I do not want to hear what you've got to say on behalf of these people. To me, for God to say that is scary. That's scary. That's wicked. To me, that's wicked. God has decided, I don't want to hear it. And all of us little boys and girls, there's been times we'd run into the kitchen, your mom would say, get out of here. I don't want to hear anything you got to say. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to look at you. The best thing for you to do is go away and leave me alone. Now, your mama's going to forgive you. Yes. That may be, but we'll get there. All right, so definition of righteous. I'm taking this from the Truth for Today commentary, and I'm giving you the reference on your handout. Doing what is right, fair, just, and normal. I like that normal business. That's kind of piqued my interest a little bit. And then the word wicked is to be loose, ill-regulated. I like that. Abnormal, wicked, guilty of crime, hostility to God and man. So those are the definitions as Petrillo, I think, is the author of this particular commentary, as he saw the Hebrew word used for these two words as it was translated. So, how to identify the righteous man? These are characteristics of the righteous. And here's when you say, this is what makes a person righteous, well, the opposite of that is what makes them wicked, right? I mean, it's kind of, as you read these proverbs, it'll kind of say that. And so as we go through here, you're going to say, well, you could use that to identify the wicked person too. And that's true. First one on your handout, Proverbs 10:28. The hope of the righteous is gladness, but the expectation of the wicked perishes. The righteous person has hope for the future. The wicked is thrust down by his wrongdoing, but the righteous has refuge when he dies. Proverbs 24:16. For a righteous man falls 7 times and rises again, but the wicked stumble in time of calamity. So why do the righteous have hope for the future? Why do they, when they see life and they see all the things, don't even watch the news right now, correct? It's horrible. But when the righteous person looks out there and they see life as it is and the things that are going on, why do they have a different perspective, or why should we have a different perspective when we see what's going on? What sets the righteous person apart? George? Okay. Okay, I'm going to try to sum up. To me, the key of everything that you said, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the righteous person understands that this is temporary. Where we are is temporary. What's the song? Song leaders? This world is not my home. And we understand that. We know that. So we know whatever is going on, it's temporary. It's not going to last forever. It may seem like it, and we'll talk about some of that later. It feels like it sometimes. But we know that whatever is happening, it's temporary. This life is temporary. All right. Is there some evidence that would tell us that? Do we see that in people around us, that no matter what's going on in their life, we see that in their life, and it's an encouragement? But is there, this is kind of a trick question, is there any evidence to support that? This is not a fair question, I know. What would you say, John? We have what of eternal life? But what would you say before that? Abundant. Okay, thank you. So is that faith or is that evidence? Both. Both? Both? There is faith to that. What is the evidence? What do you think is the evidence? What would you see as evidence that the person who is righteous can count on and look to the future and be secure in that future? There you go. And there are evidences of what the Bible says. In some regards, I look at, especially the 4 gospel accounts, this is not correct to say this, but I feel like it's the only way. In some regards, I look at the gospel accounts as a legal document. These men are saying, I saw this, and I'm writing it down. I am a witness. Paul saw things, and he wrote them down. Matthew, Mark, they were witnesses. They saw things. When Peter stood up on the day of Pentecost, he said, we saw these things, and they were written down. And so in one regard, I look at that and I say, this is evidence. These men saw these things, and they wrote them down. I saw Jesus after he was risen from the dead. Do you buy that or not? This is what Bible class is about, is going back and forth. You buy it or not? Am I off the rails?
Hebrews talks about cloud witnesses, and it's easier for us to accept something from a valid authority, saying this is how it was. It's like, Tower of London.
Or you can talk to someone who's been there. I saw it. I took the tour. I saw it. I went up the Eiffel Tower. I saw, whatever it is. Yes. And so I look at that and look to that. To me, is some of what I would say is evidence, but you could argue that. Another characteristics going down is not succumbing to worry. And to me, it's almost like they look to the future. They're not worried about the future because we see. We have hope in that. But there's 3 proverbs that I've given there. The righteous will never be shaken. The Proverbs 10:9, he walks in integrity. He who walks in integrity walks securely. But he who perverts his ways will be found out. See, there's that, you can use it both ways to describe the wicked and the person who walks with integrity or righteousness. Proverbs 28:1, the wicked flee when no one is pursuing, but the righteous are as bold as a lion. What is it about the life of the righteous that makes that person secure and bold? What is it about the life that we live as a righteous person? It's that He's promised us, yes. I'm not asking the question very, very well because I'm not getting the answer I want. Okay. I buy that. There's a security there, a knowing, yes. Okay. Anybody else? All right, Proverbs 10 and verse 30 says, the righteous will never be shaken. Is that absolute? Mark says, no, it's not absolute. Because we know better, right? We know there are times that we will get news that will shake us to our core sometimes. And that's reasonable. And that's one of the dangers of taking these proverbs just at face value and say, that's it. There will be times that we are shaken. We'll get bad news. We'll lose someone that we love dearly. Something will happen tragic, and it can shake us. But what is the long term? What happens later on? There you go. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. You retract? Okay. There are times that we're shaken and we can cry out to God. Someone in this auditorium told me one time you can holler at God and take your problems to God because He can take it. And I love that. He can. He can take it. He wants to hear what we have to say. And He can deal with it because He wants to hear from His children. And who else are we going to tell that can help us see the light and get to where we need to be? Because we know all of us know with any sense that we know we can't stay there, right? We got to get up and move on. So, all righty. This is one of my favorites here. The righteous person does not create unnecessary problems for himself or others. There's really no explanation needed there, right? Proverbs 11:5, the righteousness of the blameless will smooth his way, but the wicked will fall by his own wickedness. By transgression an evil man is ensnared, but the righteous sings and rejoices. To me, one of the great lessons about sin and wickedness in the Old Testament is consequences. It teaches us consequences. And we see that there are consequences sometimes for the entire nation of Israel when there is sin, especially in the leadership of the nation. There are consequences to people who are innocent. They suffer and all that. And we see that. However, innocent people do suffer. They just suffer sometimes, don't they? It's not always because of that. One of the things I don't want us to do is everything that happens, can you blame God for every bad thing that happens? Or did Grandma just trip and fall and break her hip? I don't think God does all that. I don't see any proof. Sometimes we just trip and fall and break our hip. It just happens. How easy it's to tell the difference, though, sometimes. Okay. Yes. I like the way you put that, Melba, that he uses the circumstances. In the Old Testament, there are wicked leaders that they do wicked things, and so God used them to let them do their wicked things to accomplish things that he wanted accomplished, like punishing Israel sometimes. And we never know how things were going to work out. And there's probably things that we can look back in our life of things that happened, but at the end you look back and you go, I wonder. I don't know. Maybe not everyone has had that experience, but the righteous are going to have problems. But again, how are the problems of the righteous person different from the problems of the wicked person? Okay. We have our brothers and sisters to encourage us, to see about us, come see us in the hospital or wherever. Yes, we have that. What does it say? You got it? Okay. Okay. You're testing me, Bill. Okay. Yes. You want to read that again louder, please? You could add Hebrews 13. He tests who he loves. So the difference, all right, the wicked person oftentimes creates their own problems, right? So what have they got to look forward to then? Prison? No. Well, yes, and when you look at when they're getting consequences of their action, they start blaming. It's everybody's fault but theirs. And we've seen that with friends, family, whatever. But oftentimes, when they look at the problems, they start looking for someone to blame. Whereas a righteous person, I believe, looks at said, how am I going to get through this? Because when we create our own problems sometimes, we don't want to take responsibility for what we caused. Anyway, all right, continuing on, godly desires, Proverbs 11:23. The desire of the righteous is only good, but the expectation of the wicked is wrath. In Proverbs 29:7, the righteous is concerned for the rights of the poor. The wicked does not understand such concern. To me, this is a standout quality of the righteous. is a genuine concern for someone else. We have all been around people that gleefully looked at someone else's problems. They deserved it. God's getting them back. Whatever we've seen people like that. Whereas the righteous person looks and sees a person who's hurting, a person who needs something, a person who is a child of God with a soul that needs help from his fellow brothers and sisters, for someone who cares about them. A wicked person quite often has no compassion whatsoever for that person who's going through that. Could care less. In fact, sometimes enjoys seeing the pain in others. Even as a righteous person, when we see someone do something, even if it's a case where we have told them, please don't do that. Please, it's not a good idea, and they do it anyway. Even when they face the consequences of that decision that they were warned by their parents, friends, whoever, and then they're reaping those benefits, still does not gleefully look at that and enjoy it. They still have compassion for that person and still want to help them get through it and still want to help them understand, sometimes we are our own worst enemy, but help them get through it. But a wicked person, no. And then the pure thoughts, or just the inner being of a righteous person. Proverbs 12 and verse 5, the thoughts of the righteous are just, but the counsels of the wicked are deceitful. That contrast again. Proverbs 16, 17, the highway of the upright is to depart from evil, but he who watches his way preserves his life. The righteous person looks at things and says, I don't need to, that's not me. I don't need to be doing this. I don't need to be thinking like this. I don't need to be participating in this. I don't need to be here maybe. I don't need to be watching that, listening to that, seeing that. I don't need this in my life. Will avoid that and keep their thoughts and their attitude pure because they are looking. And so I want you to be now thinking more and more about this progression from being foolish to being wicked. And is there some kind of progression that we can see there? Because at some point, I'm asking you, is there a point that we have to say to the foolish person, it's over. You have to change. You have to. You are being ridiculous. Whatever adjective we want to put on that. That at some point, they have to make a change or else they're going to face the consequences of their decision. But anyway, and of course, blessed are the pure in heart, they will see God, from Matthew 5 and verse 8. How does being pure in our thoughts and pure in our mind keep us out of trouble? I've already kind of alluded to it a little bit. If we have a pure heart, pure mind, pure thoughts, how does that keep one out of trouble? That's always helpful. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, really, if you don't think about it, you're not going to do it, right? And so if we're thinking pure thoughts, purity in our life, then we're not going to be, where does evil action start? In our mind, in our heart. Okay. All right. Quickly, the wicked person. Proverbs 12 and verse 13, an evil man is ensnared by the transgression of his lips, but the righteous will escape from trouble. In Proverbs 10 and verse 32, the lips of the righteous bring forth what is acceptable, but the mouth of the wicked is perverted. We've all seen the phrase and all probably used the phrase, if his lips are moving, he's lying, right? We've all seen that. And we know that there are people that we can absolutely not trust, not one single thing they say. There are some people that are talking, if they told me it's sunshine outside, I would go to the window and look. Would you not? And there are people like that you know in your life? Just, even if I could see a little glimpse under the window shade, I'd still want to go look. Because there are those people that they just, either they can't or they won't do any different. What do you think the goal of a wicked person's speech is? Do you think they have a goal, or is it just to spew wickedness? Okay, they want you to be right there in the boat with them as it goes down. Okay, what else? No. Some of that, I look at it, they're miserable. They want everybody else to be miserable. They want to blame everybody, so they want you to blame everybody with them. And we've all... Yes. And the deceitful part of that, can you really ever trust a deceitful person? No, that ship sailed. We've already really said that. They are concerned only for self. Proverbs 10 and verse 12. A righteous man has regard for the life of his animal, but even the compassion of the wicked is cruel. And the righteous is concerned for the rights of the poor. The wicked does not understand such concern. Would a wicked person ever express any concern for someone else? You read my mind, Vanessa. That, to me, is the only reason, if they're getting something out of the deal, they would express concern to get something. And I 100% there, yes. That would be the only reason they would express any concern for anybody else, because they are all about themselves. What's in it for me. And again, it's that you can't trust them. Anything that they say. And we've alluded to some of this already. Proverbs 28:1, they're always looking over their shoulder. The wicked flee when no one is pursuing. Chapter 13, verse 21, the adversity pursues sinners. Why? You've seen these scheming people. They're always an air of suspicion around. They're always looking around. Why is that? Yeah. They assume everybody's just like, yeah. And looking for someone who might be going to cause some retribution. Yes, exactly. All right. Now, a few verses. How are we on time? Good. Some verses on the characteristics of the Lord. Proverbs 15, verse 3, the eyes of the Lord are in every place, watching the evil and the good. What song comes to mind, boys and girls? All seeing eye, watching. Yes. We've all had that vision of this eye up there in the sky watching us. Or you've been there when your mama caught you and you go, how in the world did mama know I was doing that? Because you can't fool mama. Mama knows. She knows her children. You can't fool mama. Well, you can't fool the Lord either. Proverbs 16, verse 2, the ways of a man are clean in his own sight, but the Lord weighs the motives. Commit your works to the Lord, and your plans will be established. The Lord has made everything for its own purpose, even the wicked for the day of evil. And that sounds a lot like Ecclesiastes 3, doesn't it? Proverbs 16:9. The mind of a man's plan, the mind of a man plans his way, but the Lord directs his step. How does he do that? How does the Lord direct our steps. Or does he? Yes, exactly. And really the first 9 chapters of Proverbs really talked about that. Listen to your mom, listen to the instruction of your parents. You know, I'm paraphrasing, because they'll keep you out of trouble, they'll guide you, and all of that. God's Word tells us the way to act, the way to be, the way that we should just be in this life. Proverbs 19:17, one who is gracious to a poor man, lends to the Lord, and he will repay him for his good deed. Again, is that absolute? I have said this myself, no good deed goes unpunished. What did I mean when I said that? It does sometimes, doesn't it? Maybe they didn't appreciate it, maybe whatever. How are we lending to the Lord, though? Yes. Many plans are in a man's heart, but the counsel of the Lord will stand. The fear of the Lord leads to life, so that one may sleep satisfied, untouched by evil. So we know nothing's hidden from God. He's the ultimate judge. Does the Lord judge motives, or does he judge action? Both? Which is most important? Is action more important, or motive behind the action more important? I would think so. Okay. Vanessa, what did you say? Thought doesn't do you any good. Okay, I buy that. What'd you say, Melba? Okay. Is that what you're quoting, Melba? And so David's saying motive and action are basically the same thing. Yes. Okay. Chad, what were you saying a while ago? True. Okay. Okay. So, what are we saying? I get to ask Noah. Mike, what were you going to say? Yes. Okay. Yes. Yes. Correct. But something good got done. Yes. this is great discussion, and I really think it's hard to separate. I mean, if you have the motive and you do want to do it, but if you don't ever do it, I mean, good.
Like that Pharisee that's making that prayer, all the great things he was doing.
Yeah,
Not like his boast.
right. It's probably the reality is probably there will be no action if there's no motive. If there's nothing behind it, there will not. And so you got to have both in order to really truly accomplish good. I'm reminded of Chad and Mike reminded me, trying to think of this epistle where Paul wrote, says, some people preach to cause me trouble, but he rejoiced because Christ is preached. And so sometimes you just have to take it even though they're only in it for themselves, and just take it. Okay, great discussion. All right, so back to the last few minutes here. Is there a progression from being foolish to being wicked? What are your thoughts as we've talked about now for 2 weeks? We've talked about foolishness and wisdom and righteousness and wickedness. Does a person who stays in the foolish state gradually progress to the wicked state? Would they just be continually dumb and get into stuff, or would they actually get to the point where you would say they did that on purpose and they meant to be bad, they meant to, and Ron doesn't have to be the only one that speaks here. The reason I'm asking, do you see people that their whole life they are naive and foolish? And that's not necessarily the same thing. Some people are just naive, period. I call them innocent sometimes. I just never see it. But there's some people who are foolish who continue to make mistakes. Or there are people who stay in that state their entire life. Or if they do stay in that state their entire life, are they progressing to the point where God's going to say, I'm done. I'm done. Yes. I agree with you. There's some people, they're just mean. They're just mean. They're not foolish. They're mean. And they want to be mean. But they had to start somewhere. They didn't, we argue about the age of accountability, but whatever that age is, when they hit that age, and they weren't wicked at that point, unless they had some mental thing going on. Okay. They enjoyed it, huh? Okay. Yeah. Or they got away with it. Yeah. Yeah. I like the power, the money, the getting away, whatever it is. I'm not sure it's a question we can really resolve, but in my mind, I think if we look at a person who is foolish, okay, maybe they're uneducated, they don't know, whatever it is, whatever state they're in, but in the first 9 chapters, Solomon talked about that. You can't stay there. You can't stay there. You got to listen. You got to listen. So if they do stay there and they refuse to listen, is there a point where they reach and you just have to say, this is a wicked person? And I kind of lean that way, because if you keep living this way and doing these things because of just dumb things that you do, at some point, I'm like you, Patsy, it's just like, well, they must be enjoying it, you know. If they know better, then it's
Yes.
It's kind of like, okay, I made a mistake, and so I learned from that mistake, so I'm not going to do it again. But they don't. Debbie? Yes. Right. Yes. I, oh, absolutely. Yeah. I'm. Yeah. I wouldn't. I don't think I, as a human, have the ability to say that someone is irredeemable. To me, that's not me to say. That's God is the judge. It's my responsibility to give them always the benefit of the doubt. Now, I know you don't cast your pearls before swine. I get that. But I'm not the judge. Right. It may be, yeah. Right. Okay. I really appreciate the discussion tonight, and I appreciate everyone who chimed in. Next week is Words in the Tongue. That'll be fun. And I'll leave you with this thought about words in the tongue. Some more Southern witticism or wisdom. Some people need to use a glue stick instead of a chapstick.